show where something or nothing might happen.
Great. Thanks for giving me the heads up. Wait for the 3, 2, 1.
So I just showed me this video of Jim Carrey on Bill Maher.
Right.
And well, it's just weird. Like, I don't know what I was like. I guess maybe I was expecting like it to be as weird as Elon Musk on Joe Rogan, which we can talk about that too.
Yes.
I guess it was like, because yes.
I might have over weirdly sold it because I didn't give you a context, but I know that I was pretty aggressive with you need to see it. Yeah. So maybe that threw it off.
So I do think it was annoying the way he put his feet up on the table right away.
It was the first thing he did.
An ad for Nike.
Did Nike pay him for that? I think the question is, how much did Nike pay him for that?
Well, I think the sadder and the scarier thing is that Nike didn't pay him for that.
Do we know that?
We don't know that, but like my guess is that this is an enormous act of virtue signaling. And it's him. I mean, he's been in trouble at times before with the PC part of Hollywood because of his outspokenness about vaccines. And, you know.
Well, this all seemed like a departure because he went from being so out and also usually like not quite that lucid or linear or trackable.
Right.
When I've seen him in the past couple of years, he's out there and circuitous and Jason Silva-esque. And this was him really establishing his normalcy in a way that I haven't seen him like this long. Clean shaven and.
So I think, you know, he has a new show coming out. It's on Showtime.
A television series?
They're just saying that's what they're saying. And so all of the cable stations, you know, that paradigm is very left and very political PC.
Right.
And so, you know, it's his first time on Bill Maher. Like, what a great place to come and say, look, I'm back from loony libertarian land and I'm ready to tell the party line. Right.
So, but why would he, like, where's the pressure? Like, where did this pivot come from with him?
So, I think we're seeing, I think it's an extension of Trump derangement syndrome.
So you think he buys that?
Well, I think that, like, I don't know if any of these people buy any of this shit. They're actors. Right? And so, but it's this kind of, so there's a lot of people who are anti-establishment maybe, or even like a little bit more independent than your typical PC liberal Hollywood kind of person.
Right.
But they also seem to be, I'm not saying that they are, but seem to be deranged by Trump as well. So there's like a lot of people who are like, or even someone like Cenk Uygur, right, from the Young Turks.
No idea who that is.
The Young Turks, like their progressive online outlet. He's like, was semi-anti-Hillary. He was more of a Bernie guy, but he's still so deranged by Trump.
Right.
So both
like
things
Sam Harris.
Yes. Yeah, like that kind of thing.
Right.
And so, but with Jim Carrey, like, I don't know. I mean, he has made comments. So I remember when he was in the whole thing with the vaccines, because he used to date Jenny McCarthy and her kids were vaccine damaged.
Right.
And then he had this whole like series of tweets that he got in trouble for. Where he was like, it's not that I'm anti-vax, it's that I'm anti-thimerosal or anti-mercury.
Right.
Which is totally reasonable and national. But he got maligned for that.
Well, that's my point. I feel like he was been out of the matrix for a long time. He's been out of this particular bubble. So to see him now taking such a hard line, also the same week that there's this Nike thing.
Right.
And when I was asking you about Jay-Z on Van Jones and why this rapper is being reframed as a thought leader, did you know that he's Van Jones' manager?
What?
Yeah, his management company manages Van Jones.
Interesting.
So then I put it together because I'm a little slow and I'm like, oh, that was a giant Nike ad. Like, I get it. Nike paid Jay-Z to compare Colin whatever to Muhammad Ali and to completely malign Muhammad Ali's legacy to fitness.
So we're saying that Nike is broadening their umbrella to make it not just about the athletes, but to get all of the other social influencers commenting on what it is the athletes are doing.
Right, because Serena Williams
she's in that new commercial with Colin Kaepernick.
Right, okay. And now just also the timing. We haven't seen Jim Carrey do anything mainstream in a while. In the first 5 seconds, he throws his brand new Nikes, sole first, up on the desk.
Yeah.
Then he goes semi-awakened, semi-second-tier conscious about I'll break bread with any Trump supporter any day. So it's like, okay, now you're establishing trust that you're not from the divisive psycho land. And then he goes into straight up weird Trump Trump derangement syndrome. And then he sells, this was my thing, he sells us on, this is the best thing to happen to the Democrats, and we're having this resurgence of the Democratic Party. And then he sells us his socialism, medical. It's just, everything's a commercial. That's what I'm realizing also, because I don't watch that much media. I'm like, everything's just a commercial that's dressed to sell us something, that's dressed up to look like news or discourse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's, like CNN has been caught having their seconds paid for by like Qatar and stuff like that, right?
Right. So that was clearly a Nike.
But it sounds like it was other stuff. Well, that Nike and the Democratic Party.
Right, exactly.
Right, just like the Democratic Party sponsored like all of those protests after the Parkland shooting and stuff like that. What those really were drives to get the young 18-year-olds to register for the Democratic Party.
Right. So did you get that from that? Like, did that trip you out?
Well, it's just interesting. Like, so yeah, I haven't thought about Jim Carrey in a long time. The last time I saw him, he was talking about the anti-vaccine stuff, and then he had some like videos where he talked about his DMT experiences.
Right. That's what he's been talking about recently, is just that he's enlightened, he's transcended duality, he's transcended all the stuff that keeps us mere mortals with our panties in a bunch. So it was like, weird. That's where I'm like, I thought you outgrew this like 5 years ago.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, Trump seems to be like the anchor that can bring people who have ascended back down to the bottom of the pit.
So neither Jim Carrey nor Bill Maher understand how the country works. They're still ascribing that much power to this singular figurehead, and he's the blame for the whole shit show that we're dealing with now. Like, are they that naive? I don't think so.
No, they're playing a game. Like, they're playing a game, but it's the whole, like, this is the other part. Like, really, actually, almost nothing has happened since Donald Trump has been president.
No, but okay, so that's, well, I'll bookmark. But like, nothing really that started.
There's been a lot of talk about things that are going to happen.
All the sex worker advertising sites have been shut down. That has actually happened.
Okay, so that has happened, but we don't hear that much about that.
No.
But like, so the wars have continued. So continued Obama policy wars. Even though they talk about how much harder he is on immigrants, actually, Obama did as much deporting or more, and as much, all that stuff that was like people at cages on the border, that was an Obama thing.
Of course.
So there's that. We still have a war on drugs. We still, the economy is, I don't know if it's actually better or they just say it's better, but it's not worse. It's not worse.
Isn't saying it better and being better, it's whatever they tell us.
Yeah. So, but that's the thing with this. If they say it, then they hope it will be true. Like, that's the whole thing with people who are in false positions of power, is that they think merely by saying something or writing it on paper that it makes it true.
Well, that's everything that's going on right now. It's just like complete bullshit, because I don't know if you got to see that Twitter thread that I sent you the link to. But did you see that?
I saw something, but I think maybe I'm thinking of something different.
Okay, so it was last week when there was the thing with Bannon was going to headline at the New Yorker Festival, and I saw Judd Apatow tweet something like, well, then I'm not going. This is absurd. He should be banned. And I tweeted like, that's not cool. Like, why can't you still go and just hear some things that you might not agree with? Like, why do we just not have to go? This feels like a dangerous sort of censorship road we're going on. Cut to 700 tweets telling me I'm a racist Nazi. And then in all of those, like, in this barrage of outrage that I have not ever had that much Twitter energy coming at me. So it was like 99.999% of people were just talking about how violent our world has become and how racist it is, and how Black people can't go out of their house without feeling like they're going to be shot or killed or lynched. And these are the people who are calling for their extermination. And it was like, and I was very, honestly, truth be told, I've never read anything that Steve Bannon has written. I've never heard him speak. Like, I don't really know anything about it. I just thought,
it's the same as Trump shit. He's a fucking narcissist.
Right. But my perspective on it was like, oh, you have these two publishing icons from very different points of view, one of whom is very controversial. I think it would be really interesting and useful to see that conversation so that we could have more data, and for someone like Bannon to be grilled by someone coming, in his realm, same sort of like business media mind with a different mindset. That would be really interesting conversation. But so of all these people who are, and I'm taking this as education, oh, really? He's a Nazi? Like, can you show me some citation? Can you send me some links? Like, there was zero, like literally nothing. But you have hundreds and hundreds of people who are retelling this narrative
Right.
That seems to be based in nothing. I mean, I get that Bannon like has some ideas that don't sound awesome, but I didn't come across anything, and I did my own research where he was calling for the extermination of
no, there's none. I mean, it's the same thing. Like, so he's exactly like Trump. He wants power, and he's willing to do whatever will put him in a position of power, whatever will make him look good. He's willing to dog whistle to people.
Right.
But I don't think he actually holds any beliefs himself other than the fact that he should be in charge and in power.
Right, but the public narrative around him
right.
is clearly completely different. That's steeped in this is where I was tying this back. Is steeped in nothing. It's steeped in dandelion.
The only thing, and this goes for Trump and Bannon, but maybe Bannon a little bit more than Trump, is that he's a nationalist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but which is different than, I mean, you know, like lots of people are nationalists.
But that's being pro-America, right?
It's pro-America. It's America first. What's
wrong with that?
Legal
like,
immigration.
If we lived in Spain, wouldn't it be
right.
Spain first?
Well, everyone else is allowed to be nationalist except for America, and everyone else is allowed to be proud of their race and their heritage and their culture except for white people. And
I don't even know what white people means. Like, that's not a thing. Right. Like, that's not. It's an opposite of black,
European
but it's
people.
not.
Right. Whatever.
Right? I don't even get that.
Yeah. So it's just no. I mean, I agree with you. Now, Steve Bannon is like not my cup of tea, right? But like he's right about some stuff.
Right.
And so that's this whole, like, you know, like people have gotten to this place where they're so like in such an emotional panty wad all of the time that they can't recognize toilet paper to dry their crotch with.
Well, and then you have, I saw this thing about Obama said this week, like, you can't call out Nazis. Like, so again, like this Nazi narrative. Did you see that?
I saw that, like, he and Trump, like, he said some nasty things about the Republican Party in his speech, and then Trump said some nasty things about him. But I didn't actually really see much content of. I mean, I saw him saying, like, "What happened to the GOP party? They're not conservative anymore. They're radical." I heard him saying stuff like that.
The clip that I saw was like, "How hard is it to call out Nazis? How hard is it to say Nazis are bad?" So again, we see the continued build of this Nazi story, where this is the fiction that I'm taking issue with, because I wasn't aware that we were in danger of Nazis. But the problem is that when you feed people the narrative that they are, then they have this false sense of nobility and like heroism around their outrage because they're saving the world.
But also, I think if they, what about the idea of speaking something into existence, right? If they talk about this enough times, if they say it enough times, then eventually some of these guys who are alt-right or like borderline like white nationalists are going to, you know what, we're fucking sick and tired of hearing this. We're going to fucking be Nazis.
That's exactly what's going on. And then you had, like, there was this one woman who was really pissed at me on Twitter, and she kept coming at me hardcore. And she was like, "How dare you support people who are trying to exterminate me?" Like, all caps. And I'm like, I'm not saying I support anyone on any level. I'm saying I don't think we should shut down this conversation. I'm saying, and I think it's silly to boycott this conversation.
If for no other reason than to know who is who.
What we're to educate ourselves. Like, okay, if we are dealing, let's say we are dealing with a Nazi. I would like to know what's motivating him, what the goal is, what the end game is, what's the intention, what's driving him.
Right.
You know, like, I want to know. So I was like, okay, you know, like, can you show me, like, I didn't realize he was trying to exterminate you. Can you send me some citations? Can you send me some clips? And then, so this woman kept pulling the, like, you know, well, you can say that from your place of privilege, you know, but I'm the one they're trying to kill. And I'm like,
if they're Nazis, you're Jewish, so then you would be the one that they're trying to kill. So what is she?
Right. So this was a black woman, but so the gist was just like oppression. And I was like, I just don't see it as very empowering that you continue to call on the tribulations of your ancestors when that's not even what we're talking about. And then it was the
Nazis didn't do anything to black people, did they?
No, but then no, it's crazy. And then, this is where I'm getting to, is the response was all caps. Like, the reason why I'm bringing up the tribulations of my ancestors is because it's exactly the same. Nothing has changed in 300 years for black people in this country. And
actually, the people who did stuff to black people were Democrats.
Well, of course. It was, the Democrats who fought for segregation and who started the KKK and all of that. But my thing was like, wow, it hasn't changed in 300 years, so Martin Luther King did nothing? Like, that's what, and that was my thing, was like, now I'm offended as an American. Like, fuck skin color. Like, this is like an indigo child who created really positive, incredible change on this planet and was absolutely a hero, and you're completely discounting his legacy and saying that didn't happen, and you have it the same as your ancestors who were brought over here as slaves. Like,
well, and also it was only 2 years ago we had a black president. That most white people voted for.
Right, but it's the same. So this revisionist history thing is getting completely out of control. And then it went straight to the like.
But do you think we're on a different timeline? Do you think we're now in a timeline where Martin Luther King and Barack Obama didn't exist as they did?
I mean, is that legit? Is that a legit Mandela effect thing where that didn't happen? They are behaving that way. Like, I know the Berenstain Bears have been erased from some people's history. Has Martin Luther King actually been erased from some people's timelines?
We're interviewing them on the show tomorrow, but
Martin Luther King?
Yeah. No, we're interviewing my friends Chris and Sheree Gio from Truth Frequency Radio, and one of the things that they've been talking about, you know, they had an interesting trip to Egypt this summer where they drank ayahuasca in the fucking, you know, the Great Pyramid. They spent the night by themselves in the pyramid and drank ayahuasca. Okay. And, you know, he did what he's calling basically like, a reset of the matrix. Okay. And since he's done that, he's been talking, and I'm not 100% clear.
Was it successful? Tomorrow. Did he reset the matrix?
We'll have a conversation about it tomorrow. Okay. But he's been talking about what he's been noticing since then is timelines being deleted.
Have you noticed timelines being deleted?
So I've been having anomalous time activity.
I've been having that too.
Which is not unusual for me. Okay. But what is the there's been more emotion with it this time for me. Like generally, like my time stuff is like novel. Like it'll happen, right? Like I'll go off into some little thing, and then I'll realize what had happened. Oh, that was interesting, but there wasn't like a great emotional change that happened with it. Got it. But what's been happening for me this time is it has like, and usually when I have a time thing, it's like 45 minutes or 2 hours or whatever. Like I think I spent half the summer moving between, like not like I would think I was on one timeline and then I was back, but I feel like I was maybe shifting between 2 or 3 for the course of most of this summer, and I'm not sure that isn't still what's going on.
Is there consistency to the 2 or 3?
So it seemed like, well, for me, it's like I'm a pretty even emotional person. Right. You'd agree about that?
Totally. Which is why I don't believe that you're a Cancer.
Right. And so there's been like my emotions have been a lot more still like probably like more even than the average person, especially these days. But how it's felt inside of me has been like some days like my usual self, and other days like so drastically different than how I feel. And there does seem to be like I don't journal or record or anything like that, right? But there does seem to be some kind of correspondence between my emotional state and like what the rest of that reality looks like. So like I don't know, like so when I say I'm like going between a couple different realities, maybe like maybe one is on a frequency level that agitates my emotional system.
But do you think intuitively that has something to do with you opening up your heart space and sharing your field in a new way?
Sure. I mean, I think that all that stuff is entirely possible. And you know, so yes, and so I don't think it's either one or the other. I think it's both and. But when I am in the reality that feels more normal, it feels totally normal. It doesn't also feel like different.
And is that your dominant reality?
Like there's been times this summer when it wasn't my dominant reality. There's been times this summer where it's just like, what the fuck world am I in? Right. And, like it seems to like I seem to be back more centered on that reality right now. Not that there isn't visits into the other one, but like I had a period of a couple of weeks where it was like, is this how reality is going to be from now on? I don't know about this. Okay. You know what I mean?
I mean, were you functional? Like, are you still
totally functional on the outside? Felt nuts on the inside.
So is it just feeling like dissonance between the like your 3D walking reality and it not, like not feeling coherent in your experience of it? Or is it like disorienting? Are rules of time space different? Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So like it felt I didn't have any room when I'm in that. So let's say that like the different reality. Like today, I feel like I'm in my normal reality, right?
Right.
When I'm in the different reality,
I'm honored.
You're in all my realities, honey. So I don't think you're getting away. So like when I was in the different space, or when I'm in the different space, it feels like I have no room for anything other than the things that like I have to do. There's not a lot of room for like.
So it's less space. Is it like time space is closing
everything
in on you?
feels yes, everything feels a little more claustrophobic.
Yeah. Oh, I just got a vision of like a pimple and like you being squeezed.
That's what
like extracted from this reality.
It feels tighter. Everything just feels like tighter in that space. Yeah. And it feels so like all I basically have room for in that existence is like work, exercise, and like other things that I have to do. Like, right? Like, and when I say have to, I don't mean that the show is a chore, but I mean like, okay, I've committed to I'm doing that, I'm going to do that. But like all the other extra stuff that I normally do, like really hard to do.
So would you say that's your dominant reality? Because I think that's, as I'm tracking reality, I think that's what most people are feeling these days.
So I think I felt that for a period of time this summer.
Okay.
I don't feel that way now.
Okay.
I'd say that like that's something that maybe like started, I'd say that was August for me.
I'm just realizing this now that I feel the same. That like August. It was this like crescendo of like I can't handle all the have-tos, and if it continues like this, like something's got to give or I'll break down.
Yes.
And that I've noticed only in the past couple weeks a spaciousness and a calm around my earthly meanderings.
For me, it's been like for the last week and a half, things have been better.
Yeah.
And in that, I'd say it was mostly August. I'd say like June and July were okay. Like there was like a few maybe little bits of weird stuff. Like in July, but not really that much.
But also we had all this crazy summer astrology.
Crazy. Well, that started July 26th. Started the crazy astrology. I think the Lionsgate
portal I thought was like August 8th. But
okay, something started on July 26th, and what was funny is like that was
Mars I think Mercury came out of retrograde, or that's when Mercury went into retrograde.
So what was weird is that was when a lot of people's shit started for me, and for a couple of people, that was like a great day.
Okay.
And then I'd say maybe closer to the August 8th is when things started to get a little kooky loony for me.
Okay. That's saying a lot.
Yeah, a little kooky loony. But like, again, I was like, I was able to like hold it together and function and whatever, but like I like in that contracted comfort zone.
Right.
Right? Like I experienced issues that I never experienced, like digestive issues, stomach issues. Lack of appetite. Like I have a fucking hollow leg. I can just like eat and eat and eat and eat and eat, like stuff that like I don't. And there's it's not that there weren't any like rational reasons for that, but those rational reasons existed before and after, and I'm not feeling them now, and I wasn't feeling them before.
Right.
So something energetically, it's kind of, it was like there was a tight space to have to squeeze through.
Yeah, like a bottleneck.
Like a bottleneck. Yeah. And so, and then it seems to have eased up in the last week and a half or so.
Yeah.
Not that I don't ever go there. Like that reality still exists, but it's not. So it's been interesting, and I wouldn't say that it's just been two realities. I feel like there's been like multiple variations sort of in between that I've been traveling through.
Right.
But so okay, so we got into this based on like timeline deletions, or maybe timeline deletion is strong, maybe like a timeline distortion or a timeline splicing or something, or timeline deletion. Like it is, like maybe one of the things Jim Carrey did say in there is he dropped the Mandela effect term on the Bill Maher show.
Right.
And so if the Mandela effect is like erasing the past or basically various timelines, on this timeline it was the Berenstain Bears, on this one it was the Berenstain Bears, right? Like are they now just not having multiples and just pulling it all together so nobody even ever remembers that there was a Berenstain? Right? So
but is this really happening with Martin Luther King and whatever this Nazi conflation is?
Well, it certainly sounds like a great expansion of what the Nazis were and a great deflation of what Martin Luther King was.
That's my thing. It's like, I'm freaking offended for like Black history and American history to have that legacy denied. In the same way, the Me Too women are pissing me off about the legacy of like the women who fought for the rights that we have.
The other thing is, if there's any Nazism, that's, I mean, obviously our government, like in the condition that it exists today, was founded from Project Paperclip, Operation Paper, you know, when they brought over the Nazi scientists and stuff like that.
Right.
And so if there is a Fourth Reich where it actually exists is within our own government, and I go looking at characters like Robert Mueller to be people who are descendants of any kind of Reich.
But I don't think that whatever the overarching dominant narrative is about Nazis right now has to do with that, unless
No, but that is the real Nazis. So
right.
Like there are Nazis,
right,
and the Nazis are in our government.
But all the like Waldorf school moms who are doubling down on why it's cool to hate Trump and why like they're triggered by our microaggressions, I don't think that's what they're talking about.
No, but they always deflect. You always say that somebody else is what you are.
Right.
Right? And so, like, basically the people who are, and again, it's super annoying you have to say this, but I am no fan of Trump, right? But the people who are trying
Your audience knows that by now, right?
Well, my audience knows that, but, like, I have to say it to mostly my family.
I can say it to my Facebook friends.
Right. Right. I guess I have to say it to your Facebook friends too, because there's that one guy who thinks that I'm just like some kind of like, he was like an older guy who just was accusing me of being selfish and a Nazi and all that. Because I don't believe in collectivism.
Right.
I was like, you met me? I'm not very selfish.
Right.
I don't know. I can say a lot of things about me. I'm not very selfish.
Right.
I just lost my train of thought, which was that
it was Nazis, timelines. Are those timelines being removed? Mueller.
So you have the Mueller and his group of people who are like doing this like Trump shit, right?
Right.
And then you have people saying the Trump supporters are the Nazis. So It's like, I know you are, but what am I?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm rubber, you're glue. Whatever you say bounces off me and sticks to you kind of shit, right? So it's like if there's an element of Nazism in our midst, it exists within the government, and it exists within that core of people who conduct secret behind the scenes investigations that aren't transparent, that aren't really founded in any evidence that, like they're supposed to be looking for evidence of Russian collusion and they just keep turning up other shit. That's not what they're supposed to do. That is Nazism. That's like going and digging up dirt on people so you have a reason to, get rid of them.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that it is so, it's that. It's deflection, it's projection, it's all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I mean, Martin Luther King was a Republican, so it would be really, and he believed in guns and all that kind of shit.
Right.
And,
I want a gun so I can shoot
his,
drones out of the sky.
Niece or daughter or something has, like, been on the, like, Alex Jones show and been like, my dad, like, he would not be down with any of this shit.
Did you hear that Joe Rogan won't, oh, no, you're the one who said that he won't have the...
Alex Jones back on.
God, that show you did was so good. I've shared it with 1 million people and...
Thank you.
Crickets.
Truth hurts. The truth really hurts. The truth hurts. Now we might have to do a show on Joe Rogan having Elon Musk on, because that was just a whole thing. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit in the...
Well, I know you didn't listen to the whole thing, but so the second half was completely different. Elon Musk was different. Like the first half.
So did they bring out the real Elon Musk? Did they put the clone away and bring out the real?
Yeah, so I think it was when he
or did they take the neural lace off?
Something happened.
Oh, the pot dissolves the neural lace.
So then it got really like emotionally reflective, but Rogan couldn't go there. Like Joe Rogan was too nervous and ass-kissy and weird, and it was weird juxtaposed so close to Chuck Palahniuk, where he gave him, like, was on him for being creepy and weird and was very out, but, like, Elon Musk was 9 million times creepier and weirder, and all Joe Rogan did was kiss his ass.
Right.
But, okay, so second half, Elon Musk smokes pot, though he says that plant medicines don't have any effect on him. But all of a sudden, he became more introspective, and he was more,
did he stop talking so weird?
No. A little.
Weird.
He did start speaking a little bit more human. Like he did not. He was total AI bot first, and then he got really human and like vulnerable about feeling isolated because he's in his head and it being kind of tormenting. And Joe couldn't go there, but so he did get completely different. But then, like the last quarter was just an advertisement, just like we just saw with Jim Carrey and Bill Maher, just like Van Jones and Jay-Z, was an advertisement for cars that drive themselves. And it was like a really hardcore push for taking passenger-driven cars off the road. And it was so obvious that it was a commercial for that. And I'm really not into this. Yeah. How this is being.
Well, that's the entire purpose of Elon Musk. The entire purpose of Elon Musk is to confuse the younger generation about who and what Tesla is.
Oh, completely.
So when you say to somebody,
Joe even brought up the real Tesla, but they didn't have any interest. Like, Joe missed every single opening for an interesting conversation.
Because that's not Joe's job. Joe has a job and he does his job. Right. And so like the whole purpose of so people go, and I'm not saying I 100% agree with with all of what he says, but there's a very interesting blog online, Miles Mathis. I think it's Miles Mathis, or is it Miles Matheson? I can never remember. Maybe I'll figure it out, put the link in the thing. And he has all these wild ideas about everything, the way everything's been hoaxed and faked.
Okay.
And I don't agree. He's an interesting guy. He's an artist and a scientist.
When you say everything, just give me
when I first started
moon landing.
The first one that somebody turned me on to was he talked about the Sharon Tate murders. The Sharon Tate murder.
That those didn't happen.
That it was staged in a way that he's very compelling. What do you have to say about that? So then that
definitely shifted culture.
So you can go to his blog. I'll put a link in there because I can never remember if it's Mathis.
And Polanski has so much weird shit around him.
Right. So
I don't even know what this is, but I'm already fascinated.
So this is he talks about everything. It's hard to any big celebrity on there. He has something weird to say about them, and I would say that so the world cannot be as fake as he thinks it is.
Okay.
Otherwise, I suppose it could be. I suppose it could be, but I just think that there's enough observant and intelligent people that if it was as fake as he says, it would have fallen apart already. There has to be enough grains of truth that it keeps people on the ride, right?
Okay.
But I would say that I can't get on, and I don't think he expects anybody to be on with him 100%. I think he's he's an artist, and so he sees things differently. He's also a scientist.
Okay.
And so he has both the right and the left brain going, and he sees things a little differently. But I'd say that on about 60% of the things he talks about, he has a point. That doesn't mean I agree with the whole premise on each of those 60% things, but I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And there's a few things where I'm like, this is definitely it. And his take on Elon Musk, I was already suspicious of Elon Musk before I saw this. I've been suspicious of Elon Musk all along because I know what Tesla is, and Tesla energy is actual free energy, not partially free controlled energy. Right.
Not the most expensive car.
Not the most expensive, but more than that, it's
the energy itself.
The energy itself.
Yeah.
And if you ask,
which is why Tesla was so discredited during his lifetime.
Right. Why he was basically killed.
Right.
And why his shit was stolen and buried and all that kind of crap.
Full on free energy.
It was full on free energy. It was full and it warned of the dangers of it as well, the dangers of weaponization of it, and also encouraged that you have to be spiritually balanced on a certain level to be able to handle it.
Which is kind of our whole thing as a humanity, that we're not evolved enough to handle our toys.
Right. Exactly. And so Elon Musk is there. So if you say the word Tesla to kids, they think it's a car.
Oh, it's like ISIS.
It's like ISIS. Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah. And then also he gave himself. You saw the agenda these cars they have an extended battery life, and then you have to stop and charge it, right? Mm-hmm. But when there was the hurricane in Florida, Tesla car company tweeted out that they were going to be extending the battery charges so people could get away safely. Well, wait a second.
Oh, you have that technology?
Yes. So why is it not always? And if it can, I think generally it's
and what is that, remote? Are people trading in their batteries? No. All they do is push a button, and now everyone's Tesla drives.
I think they were extending it from 300 miles to 500 miles or something like that.
What?
So what? How? Right.
Okay.
Right? So everybody could make sure they could get to dry land safely.
And this really happened, or is this your blogger guy?
I didn't get this from him, but this was this was going around a couple of years ago when this happened. I can't say for sure that it's 100%, but I heard it in enough places. I'm like, oh, that's interesting, You know what I mean? But also,
why hasn't anyone picked up on that? Like, that's massive.
Because I could be wrong, but like when I heard this, I was like, well, that's the tell right there, because that's kind of what I was suspected.
Right.
But let's just say that that's not even true. Like, if it was truly Tesla energy, then you wouldn't need to stop and charge it all the time.
Well, it's obviously not Tesla energy. I thought it was just like an homage to.
Okay, but if it really is an homage to Tesla, then why isn't he out there lobbying for free energy?
Because he's too busy trying to move us to Mars,
right?
Which that was another commercial for like how that's the answer to everything. It was so insane. I
need to move to the desert.
It's for yes, and that like
for everyone to move to New Mexico.
Elon Musk was saying like, if I lived in a world where we couldn't colonize Mars, like this whole thing would be the worst curse ever. But because I can colonize Mars and create paradise for us there, like I'm down with the human experience and everything makes sense.
Okay, so this is interesting. So
it was nuts.
So when people like Andrew Bashago or some of these other people talk about colonization of Mars, they're called crazy. But when Elon Musk talks about the colonization of Mars, then that's genius.
Well, and that was the other thing, was like how often Joe Rogan would like cut Elon Musk off. He would like interrupt him to tell him how great he was and to like put him on these crazy pedestals. It was such another, in the same way that well, not in the same way, but how we acknowledged that the Chuck Palahniuk interview was weird and sort of not in the normal Joe Rogan era. This was another weird, like a new iteration of him as just this ass-kissing little beta weasel.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Did you get that from the pieces that you? Oh,
I only saw clips of the Elon Musk and I only saw clips of the Chuck Palahniuk. I very rarely have time to watch a whole Joe Rogan.
The Palahniuk is so worth it. The Musk not, but the Palahniuk is amazing.
I was just mostly disturbed at the way Elon Musk speaks.
Because he's not human.
He's not human. So
and I don't even think that Asperger's.
No, this is not Asperger's.
It just wasn't human.
What this is okay. So it's I mean it's.
But Joe did call him a robot at the end.
It's because they have to tell you what's going on.
Right.
That's the rules.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
Right. Just like
who regulates those rules?
And I'm not going to go into it fully because I'll probably do something with Robert on this. But just like Serena just had to tell everybody that she's a man. She just had. That's the rules. Right.
So who makes those rules?
Like, well, that's part of the deal with like Satanism or vampires. The vampire has to ask to come in before, right?
Okay.
So like the Satanists have to tell you what they're gonna. It's how they cremate their care. It's how they don't have to feel guilty about it.
Right.
Right. So they tell you what they're gonna do to you, and you don't get to stop.
It was so out of character for how Joe was handling the whole interview, and how then he said, "Well, because you're a robot," I was like, I kind of give you some credence for that, but that's not consistent with how you've been holding this.
Right. So, but like, just announcing that we have just introduced AI to the world.
Right. That you have the AI bot announcing that.
So what you have here, and this is clever, and this is what they do.
Was it a clone of Elon Musk? Is there ever an Elon Musk?
So this
is he an AI? So like originated figment?
Okay, so so first I'll say that this is what they do. It's kind of like it's another iteration of Hegelian dialectic or problem reaction solution, right? Mm-hmm. Like you have it's a thesis, antithesis, synthesis.
Okay.
Right. So or
I spent all day writing about synthesis in the book I'm writing.
Problem reaction solution, right? So you have the person who was warning about the AI actually be the AI.
So the problem is the solution.
Right. So like that. So okay. So like the perfect example, chemtrails, right?
Right.
They're saying that like we need to spray chemtrails to stop global warming, even though they've been spraying chemtrails all along, and that's part of what's causing the heating up of the planet.
Right.
So you're proposing as the solution the very thing that caused the problem.
Yes.
Right? So Elon Musk is AI. He's here warning about the AI that he already is, and people are worshiping him and are going to listen to him and are going to take AI in order to combat the AI, which is neural lace.
Well, what was so interesting was hearing him, and again, like I'm not, chime in if this is a part you saw or didn't see, but he was talking about, AI and this is coming, and he was like, and there's nothing we can do to stop it, and it's not thinking about us, and he went into this really fatalistic thing, and I'm like, just unplug it? Like, isn't that actually power?
He's not here. He's not here to promote that because his whole paradigm relies on being plugged in because he is not Tesla.
Because he's plugged in.
Right. Because Tesla was not. Tesla was unplugged.
Right.
And Elon Musk is plugged in.
But he presents us with the problem and then tells us that we can't find a solution. And then Joe Rogan, who actually I would argue is a super intelligent human, doesn't pick up on that, which it wasn't like Joe Rogan's brain to say like, no, can't we just unplug it? Like,
right. Well,
can we not?
Joe doesn't want to unplug either.
No, of course, because he was paid by Tesla or whatever lizard people. Like, he clearly was not the boss of that show. And it's also interesting how, did you hear Dave Rubin on Joe Rogan?
It
was a few months ago, right?
Yeah.
Because one of the big things about the whole IDW thing, I'm taking it on a completely different
intellectual dark web.
Thank you. Is how they keep talking about the freedom of these shows and how, and it's a big thing that I've heard recently with Joe Rogan. Like, he's so powerful because he has no boss and he does whatever he wants.
But he can't have Alex Jones on.
Well, that's the thing. Is like, wow, why am I hearing that? Because the past
he keeps saying he's going to have Roseanne on, but he hasn't had her on yet.
Well, and why does he keep telling us this? Like, why does he keep reminding us how free he is and how independent he is? Like, and now all of a sudden he doesn't seem free or independent at all.
No. Right, because that's the whole. So they basically have recognized that people realize there's a problem with the mainstream media. So let's start. That's the whole purpose of the Joe Rogan podcast,
right? And
the purpose of the Rubin Report and stuff like that is to have a slightly. Okay, so we're going to make the pen a little bit bigger, and we're going to decorate it a little better and make it seem a little bit edgier. Right. But it's still going to be a pen. Right. The internet used to be the Wild West, and now it's just like the farm at Pierce.
I mean, do you think that about Dave Rubin Report though? Like that?
It is very controlled. Like he talks about a lot of things that I agree with, but it's very controlled. Like when he'll have on someone who he says is an anarchist, but what they really are is just like a professor at a college that believes in certain anarcho-capitalist principles, right? And isn't really okay. So he'll have that on, or he'll have on like.
But I don't think he's big fish enough to be being manipulated the way it seems like Joe Rogan is currently being manipulated.
It's
Am
different.
I off on that?
Yeah, it's different. So like the people that Dave Rubin has been tasked to control are easier to control than the people that.
Do you think Dave Rubin is actually handling people?
No, I think he's being handled. Right. He's being handled. He's being handled. He's partnered with like Learn Liberty. Okay. Right. And with like, he does a lot of stuff with like people who are associated with like Prager and stuff like that. Okay. So like he's, it's a completely different kind of control. It's more like, and he has some good stuff on, but it's not like there's, I'll see people in the comment section being like, oh, I wish you would have this person on and that person. And those are people I like to see on too, but it's never going to happen. Right. Like there's a select group of people, like he's allowed to go this many feet outside of the box, right, but not, and if you're gonna go, and every once in a while he'll have an outrageous person on, but it's an outrageous person that is like there to like make it look crazy. Right, they're there to be outrageous, like Milo, and exactly. Okay, but also like
to like legitimize the criticism, right, or
so
to delegitimize.
He also like there's the huge like. My guess would be that whatever's controlling Dave Rubin is in some way connected, probably obfuscated, but is connected in some way to AIPAC or the Israel lobby. Okay. Right? Because there's never any criticism of Israel on this show.
The Jew thing is such the big... There's no criticism of Israel on any of the shows
I'll give credit to Joe Rogan. He lets Abby Martin come on and talk about, what Israel's doing to the Palestinians. Right. And but when
was the last time?
She was on a few months ago.
Okay. But doesn't it seem like his shift has happened? Well, no, I know you tracked it longer.
But this is what's interesting. So, and I think we and I talked about this, but maybe we talked about it on the show we didn't end up putting out. Okay. So there's a lot. So Abby Martin, and maybe we'll go see her at that thing. With Jimmy.
I'm game. I'm in.
So she has another one of these people that somehow has moved from being more libertarian and a conspiracy theorist into being a socialist and trusting government and whatever.
How does that happen? I don't get that.
Well, I think sometimes it's a career move.
Okay, that makes sense.
Or sometimes
but you can't unknow what you know. Like when you brought up...
You can if you're under mind control.
Okay.
Right? And so, you can if you're under mind control, and you can if you are so focused on a single topic that you'll do whatever you have to do to make sure that topic gets attention. And that includes not being controversial in other areas.
Right.
And she's extremely focused on two topics.
And is that a deal with the devil? Is that an agreement with the media overlords to
No, I think it can be or it doesn't have to be. I don't know.
It's just a strategy.
So I think for her, she's really, really passionate somehow about She wants to talk a lot about empire, and she wants to talk a lot about Palestine. And I think those are important things that need to be talked about. But so in order to be able to do that, she's, she works for Telesur, which she's now being censored, which I'm not for that. I think, like, even though I don't like government sponsored media and I don't like socialism and stuff like that, they get a voice too. They get to talk. They get to push their ideas too.
Right.
And so I think that she, like, so she now has this, she's very pro-socialism and very pro-socialist government kind of stuff. And I don't know if that was always her feelings or if that was a natural evolution for her or if it just became a way she realized that, like, that better sort of suited the other things that she wanted to do.
Well, that's also rising to, like, that's another program that we're being fed right now.
Yes.
So that was the whole.
Right. So I don't, but I think for her, like, whatever best positions her to be able to talk about the two topics that she's really passionate about, that I do believe she's really passionate about.
Totally.
I think she is 100% dead on about Israel and Palestine. I think a lot of her ideas about empire are right. There's a few things I think she gets wrong.
Right.
My only issue with her is she also is another one who doesn't have a lot of room for people who disagree with her.
Oh.
Right? She's right, but she's young, and some of the things she's talking about, I think it's like she's really been the only one doing it, so you have to develop that. So I have a level of like sometimes I cringe when I listen to her, but I think, like, if you saw her video where she's interviewing people in Israel about Palestinians, and it was so powerful.
Okay.
So there's not enough people out there doing what she does on that topic, so like I give her more room.
Totally.
And my point with this was, so Joe Rogan lets her come on.
Right.
Or they're friends. She's the only person who comes on and talks about the things she does.
Right.
I'd say she's on about once a year. She's been on 3 or 4 times.
But I wonder if that's
the other thing that's funky, I talked about this one on the show that Robert and I did about, I don't know if we brought up Abby Martin in the actual show, but in that same period of time she's been being on the show, this Mike Baker guy who's the CIA agent who seems to be involved with things that are like pro-Israel and pro-Saudi Arabia,
right.
He started coming on around the same time. So like there's like a control, like, okay, let Abby Martin come on and then
we'll keep it balanced.
Yes, we'll keep it balanced.
Yeah.
We want to make sure, like, and that's what Joe Rogan is really there for, is to walk out, like, hang his toe over the edge and ultimately not step over the edge, right?
Right.
And so,
but to definitely maintain that illusion of this, like,
and Abby Martin
free platform.
She may be being controlled in ways. I'm sure she's being controlled, right? But I'm sure there's like layers to her control, and it, like, yeah, like other, like, okay, we can have this. We can have a person who criticizes empire and Israel policy, but we're also going to get her to push this thing that we like the idea of having pushed. So this is how, there's compromise made. She's compromised on a certain level. I don't know that she's compromised herself. There's some people that sold out. I don't think she has sold out.
Right.
I think she's like a passionate person, and they see that and they're like, oh, we can take advantage of this because she wants to talk about this so bad.
Right.
That, like,
Right.
But
also passion blinds people.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I believe she's passionate. I believe she's totally sincere.
Right.
I think that, like, she's really angry, which is part of what fuels her. I mean, in some ways, like, you get like that about some stuff that you're passionate about. Like, you get real worked up about it. It's part of what fuels your passion.
Passion and anger.
Yeah.
Same.
You know what I mean? But I think that, like, at a certain point, if she can learn to dial some of it back a tiny bit, then she'll be able to be more effective in reaching more people with what she's talking about.
Right.
And why were we going here again? Oh, so Joe Rogan has her on. Right. So, but that's really the only of that class of shows of these, like, IDW-ish people who are, like, sort of supposed to be fringy, but it's controlled fringe.
I wonder if he's going to start rolling back on all the fringe.
Oh, like, no, I think he is.
That's kind of my sense.
Yeah.
He's going to start going, Elon Musk is not fringe.
Not fringe.
And I think he's going to, Chuck Palahniuk is not fringe.
I mean, Chuck Palahniuk,
he's a mainstream success.
He's a mainstream success,
he's
but he
dark
has
and
dark
twisted.
and fringe elements, but like,
but not like, nothing that would upset culture. It's just more,
well, nothing that would upset the culture that they want to push.
Correct.
Right. So, like, some of the stuff he talks about would upset certain segments of the culture, but they don't care about that.
Right.
So I think we're moving. The Joe Rogan show is going to move to a space where the only shows that are going to be really interesting are shows like, I love that show that was like last week with Valentine Thomas about she's like financier lawyer who quit that to become a spiritual person. Right. Actually, interesting. That was interesting.
Right.
And then when he'll have on someone like Paul Stamets, who's like a mycologist
so
or whatever.
So he keeps it in the world of like wellness, performance, biohacking, that's where he can be
ethnobotany, things like that.
Right.
But like really any super controversial ideas, only if they're controlled. Only if there's like an end process, like an end, so like he had Eddie Bravo on again the other day, but I think they were just talking about MMA. Right. There's no fringy thing. I didn't listen to it, so they could have gone into some other stuff. But like,
I'd be interested to see if he does keep bringing on the Abby Burns.
We're gonna see the evolution. And Robert and I talked about that.
No, I know. Yeah. And I think you were spot freaking on. Yeah,
and this is not. And the part that's weird about it is within all of that, I like Joe Rogan. Like I like this show. Like I think there's some interesting stuff on it.
Didn't like him in the Elon Musk one.
Not at all. He was embarrassing. I mean, I only saw clips because he was embarrassing.
Kind of cringy. Yeah.
He's embarrassing sometimes, but sometimes he's great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the heart. Like this is the dilemma that we're all in because we live in this. We don't even know if we're in the same reality every day. So how do we navigate that? And then to be a person with so much focus on you, like. I had a hard time this summer and I have a very small show, right? Like, right. And it was all I could do to sort of keep, it was fine, but like, there was nothing wrong. But like,
when you say focus, as far as like just the amount of shows that you were doing or pushback that you were getting for what you were saying.
No, I'm not getting any pushback, but just like when you're a public person in any way, I'm a public person in a very, very tiny, tiny way.
Right.
Right. Like when you start to feel a pressure in your life, it affects that, and being public affects like others. There's a toll that is taken,
right? And
that's not to say that it's a problem or like that. No, like it's been all a blessing, like doing the show. A very small little thing. Joe Rogan's shit is huge, right? And so like there's costs associated with that you and I don't know.
For sure.
Right. And there's factors and considerations. And so I have to tell the truth about what I see. But within that, I don't think he's a horrible person and I have a level of compassion for him.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think what I'm like, if I'm just trying to like make sense of like the various through lines that we're talking about right now and like where I'm at, is like that for as long as I've been in media and as much as I understand about media, being a journalist and all of that, that I still like, it's like, do you ever have a lot of women that I know, like, never remembered that their PMS and like the depression, the moroseness, and like, what's the point is my period is coming. Right. For like as many decades as we've had periods, there's some mechanism in our biology where like I don't put it together and I'm just like, everything's hopeless. And then I start bleeding and I'm like, oh, that's what that is.
Yeah. No, I mean, I say because that happens to me. And in fact, like some of the thing that was going on with me this past week on Wednesday, like I told you, was like some of that, right?
So similarly, I have the same thing with media where like I default back to idealism and like Joe Rogan's amazing and Van Jones is like a really good, he's fighting for good. And so
this is good, but then there's the other thing about Van Jones. So Van Jones is problematic in a million ways, but he's also was like, the Russia story's a nothing burger. So he'll tell the truth about some stuff.
So that's what I'm saying. So I think this week I just had so many binkies stolen, like watching Van Jones interview Jay-Z, and I was like, I wasn't even being sarcastic. I was legit confused. Like, why is Jay-Z weighing in on? I don't understand why his point of view is relevant to this. And then with
because he's Jehovah.
Wait, huh? Is he like a new Messiah?
Right. That's the whole point.
I really, literally.
Well, he calls himself Jehovah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. Like, I'm not super familiar with. I'm not a big hip-hop fan.
I mean, I know he's married to
please weigh in. I'm sure if there's somebody out there who's really into it, but isn't that like part of his whole thing? Is that he refers to himself as Jehovah?
I'm so not up on it. I called him a thug on Facebook, and it just had like it was called a racist like 9,000 times, and I was like, but didn't he self-identify? Like, doesn't he have songs where he calls himself a thug? And allegedly he's outgrown it. Now he's a member of the ruling elite and Jehovah and a thought leader.
Right.
But my point was just like between.
But his girlfriend is Sasha Fierce or whatever.
I thought he was married to Beyonce.
Right. She's Sasha Fierce. That's her altar that she performs on stage in. Sasha Fierce.
Oh, okay.
You know that?
No, but I did.
She talks about how she comes into her body and takes over, and
I've never heard her interviewed in my life.
Yeah, you can watch her. Like you can watch her switch altars while she's sitting at the basketball game with her husband. Like she'll get going.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like completely under mind control.
Okay, remind me to ask you about, did you see this video? But I just want to tie my thing together, which was like just this week again, like having all these binkies on when I should know better, of like seeing the Van Jones, Jay-Z, the Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, and then before you came over, the Jim Carrey, Bill Maher, and just like, oh right, everything is theater.
Yes, everything.
Everything. So there are no exceptions.
My good friend Mark Devlin, who like burst the bubble on all the music, right? Like there are no more heroes. We like that's the thing humans have to get over, is there are no heroes.
We don't get to have them. Well, we get to be our own heroes.
Yeah, that's the point. You have to be the hero of your own life.
So that's why when you asked me, we were like, isn't it creepy listening to the robot read the Quillette articles? And there's kind of like, yes, it is, but it's also like, I don't think it's lying to me. Like, it's not selling me on anything because it has no inflection.
Right.
Unlike Jim Carrey, like selling me on
although just getting people to obey the robot, like the Siri who tells you your directions in the car.
Right.
Getting people to take instructions from their phone.
Well, that's also like Coco, which totally shocked me. Did you see that Pixar movie?
No.
It was the Dia de los Muertos movie that my friend took me to last year. So, I saw it at the El Capitan. I had to go through a metal detector to watch a movie.
That gets her so bent out of shape, guys.
Why is that weird? I don't want to live in a police state.
None of it.
I should be able to carry 1,000 tons of metal in my purse.
Absolutely. No, it's not weird. It's not weird. But like,
it was weird to me that other people
all become so complacent and just like, it's like, I can make a fit about it and this will take an hour, or I can just do what they say and get it over with.
I learned that the hard way at TSA. But like the fact that we're not even mentioning anymore. So then.
Yes, we live in a police state.
Yeah. So I'm, whatever. But I'm not going to identify around it. But in the movie, they have the dead people, because it's right? So like we're honoring the dead people. So in the movie, they have the dead people going through facial recognition body scanners to move between worlds, and I was so I was watching it, and I was super appalled.
That is what's happening.
So then I'm looking for the critical commentary online, like what I'm imagining, the dozens and dozens of articles that are criticizing the normalization of this technology and how we're indoctrinating an entire generation of children. It's okay, nothing. There's nothing. No one's criticized this.
Right. So I agree with you on that. But then that's also more revelation of the method, because that is what's happening. There are a bunch of dead people walking around being allowed to pass through all these realities that we're talking about, and like that's what we're living in. It's like I think that's. I mean,
or you're talking about like underworld spirits, or
I think there's. I
believe that, but I don't think they need facial recognition technology to do it. Like that's what they're putting on us so that we can acquiesce.
But like the body, they know which body holds which spirit. Let that one into this reality, that reality, right? So like these zombie bodies are now hosts to some of these disincarnate spirits, right? And some of them are allowed to travel between realms that the average person is not allowed to travel. All right, so like, I mean, that's very interesting. I had no idea about that. Yeah, very interesting.
Just as far as like the whole indoctrination machine in the middle, I don't even specifically remember what we went through. Okay, so but did you see that little video clip about the senator's wife or whoever it was doing this on her arm?
Right, the whole Trump cake, 666 KKK, whatever the fuck, racist. I don't know what the.
I don't think it was.
What's this? Remember they used to say that like Donald Trump was like making that sign to all right people.
Okay, so that was. I mean, well, if you haven't seen it, I don't know that I want to take us too far down that road, but it was.
I mean, I've heard Sally was telling me about it last night, but
so everyone's all up in arms about these hearings and due process and how our country actually works, but someone, I think it was a senator, a congressman, or whatever, was speaking, and the woman behind him, who was his wife, got it. Like there's camera sees her look at her phone, gets a text, and then she starts like doing this on her arm. So the sort of like disinformation was talking about that this is the symbol and this is what it means at satanic. But what was weirder was that she was like pushing a button underneath her skin. Like there was some sort of mechanism that it seemed. I mean, and yes, there had to be something to the symbolism, because it wasn't like she was just doing this, but there was some sort of weird amount of force / torque being applied to this part of her arm. And so I think that symbolism, again, like a grain of truth with a grain of lies. So then they were focusing on
that and not
focusing on that she was doing this
doing something.
Thing. Yeah.
So what's in her arm?
Right.
What kind of technology? What the fuck? Oh, guys, what the fuck world is this that we live in?
I just default to I have no idea.
This is like I'm thinking of Duran Duran song "Ordinary World." We have broken down the mind control aspects of that on the show before. It's a great song. Go watch the video. Everything About Our Past is in that video.
The first record I ever bought was "Hungry Like a Wolf."
That's the huge mind.
Is that another mind?
Totally.
It's like every song I like.
Every song Duran Duran. So one of my huge revelations this year has been the amount of programming I have for Duran Duran music. And we've already talked about it a little bit on the Patrons Hour of Off Planet Radio with Ordinary World, but I'm going to dig further and further and further into this. And yeah, Hungry Like the Wolf is about top of that list. But all,
really?
Yeah. I mean, this, yeah.
When I think about it in my mind, Ordinary World doesn't stand the test of time. It feels a little like much.
Right.
But Hungry Like a Wolf.
Right. Yeah, it's a way better song.
Amazing.
But go look at that video for Ordinary World and then think about every conversation you and I have had about mind control. It wasn't the Patreon. Go. It was on. I don't think you can see it on the Patreon Hour, but like, yeah. I mean, it's basically
you more.
No, I'll just give it to you. But basically, I mean, there's the whole like underwater element. There's the cross-dressing. There's authoritarian father figures. There's all sorts of weird.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, go check it out. Like being chained. Like all sorts of. Basically being chained and having to escape, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, but Duran Duran, like the revelation. I mean, it's like I had uncovered a certain level of like the musical programming,
right?
Like a couple of years ago,
right?
And then like last year, I sort of uncovered the Madonna level to it, which like I always thought of Madonna as being more about cultural mind control programming and not so much about direct. Like programming in like MK kind of way, but I kind of uncovered that with the whole thing that I had with Borderline song last year, and then this year the big revelation has been Depeche Mode and Duran Duran, and how they're straight from Tavistock.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll be going for more and more into this as I uncover more stuff. But
what about Prince?
I mean, Prince is a little bit like
so it's truly independent.
He's a
free agent.
He's a kind of like a Roseanne, I think.
Because he's also really tight with Van Jones, which is, I think, part of why I give Van Jones more credit.
Right.
And it seems like.
But I think a lot of these people have an okay side to them.
Right.
And then they have the side that gets totally distorted by control. So I think Prince was a little bit of an anomaly and an outlier that sometimes played right into the control system, right? And other times was like, fuck no.
Right.
He's a Roseanne. Right? He's a Roseanne. Same with Michael Jackson, same with Madonna.
Right.
These are all people that have.
Well, I feel like Michael Jackson and Madonna, and this is just intuitive. I haven't like studied, but like they came up through the system. Like they were, especially Michael Jackson. Like he was a kid. Like he was indoctrinated from the get-go.
Right. They're all from that same area. They're both from Michael Jackson and Madonna are both from Detroit. Right, and Prince is from Minneapolis, so they're all from that sort of same area up there.
Right.
A lot of mind control and a lot of different stuff going on. Right. Prince is just he's a very unusual personality, but even more unusual than Madonna or Michael Jackson.
Well, he's an unusual being. Like, I don't even know if he was fully human.
Right. I think the same concept. The same with Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson went to my high school.
So my dad's ex-girlfriend used to be the dog trainer for Michael Jackson. Mm-hmm. And I went to his house.
Of Havenhurst.
There's that house, but there's also a house in Hidden Hills. Mm-hmm. So I went to that house one time, and I saw the room with that chamber, the sleeping chamber. Like, I remember being in that room by myself and just looking at it.
If I had the money, I would want to sleep in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber.
And I don't. It was weird. I was in the room by myself. I don't know how I ended up there.
Did you feel an energy of anything?
Like the only memory I still have is like standing there looking at it. I don't know. Like I was there with her name was Joan. My dad's girlfriend's name was Joan. She's a dog trainer, and like I could remotely hear down the hall her talk, whatever. But I was never with her and the dog and whatever else was going on. Somehow I don't know if I was wandering around the house by myself or if I was being led around the house by someone, and if there was a reason why I was there. I don't know.
I mean, just as I'm putting it all together, because I was a huge Prince fan growing up, off the rails. And a lot of this, like you and I have talked about other songs before, Song of the Siren and whatnot. And when I track it back, because I'm obviously like late to be figuring out the various MK pieces from the like more casual, detached way that I tend to examine it, Prince had a different resonance. And still has a different resonance to me than the other sort of MK songs. Like I wouldn't I don't feel.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Do you know what I'm saying? I think that's it feels like a respite. Like, and there was something of like my more like rebellious outlier nature that I think that those frequencies matched.
I would agree. I would agree with you that he like whatever control was happening, whatever like it was more something being applied to him from the outside than something he was necessarily participating in. The only thing I would say is that he was into esoteric stuff of his own. So some things he did on his own would level up and match up to like something that the control system might do, so then they would manipulate and take advantage of that.
Right.
But he is different. I completely agree with you. Right. There's a different, just his everything about his music has like an organic something.
There's
to
an authenticity as well that's never in Madonna's music, never in Duran Duran's music. Like it wasn't like you can feel a soul, a divinity in.
Well, there's funk. There's like a funk in his music, which to a certain degree exists in some of Michael Jackson's music, but it's completely different.
Watching Prince play guitar and like that, like Michael Jackson didn't play anything. Madonna taught herself to play a couple chords.
Prince, you also understand. Okay, so he had that one album where he played every piece of music.
His first album, he played everything. And he produced it.
Right, and so like that is just so.
Like Prince was real deal.
Real deal.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean he's immune from any kind of influence or control.
No.
But I don't think that was the plan.
I'm also concerned when he got into it when he was 18.
Older, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying like if you step into the music industry at 18, who knows the many ways that he might have availed himself to things.
And he's also like, he was a dissident in a lot of ways. I mean, he was very like he was on there on top of Smiley talking about the chemtrails and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then he also was a Jehovah's Witness.
So I met someone who said this was he lived in Canada, I think, that Prince actually knocked on his friend's door proselytizing. That was always my dream. Was like I pray that one day I get a knock from a proselytizer and it is Prince.
Right. Yeah. So,
but allegedly that really happened.
But I mean I think both things existed. The guy would like have an outfit with the butt cut out. And like loved women and had tons of women around. Basically had a harem around, right?
For sure.
Was also so I think both things existed within him, and I think that part is a characteristic of people that can end up ultimately on some level being controlled.
Well, and also look how many he was tied into. Like he dated Kim Basinger, he dated Sheena Easton, he created Carmen Electra,
Apollonia, Madonna,
Vanity, Sheila E.
Yeah. Yeah, and so like these were all muses of his, right? But these are also all people that could have been handlers for him, or that he could have been a handler for.
Right.
So there's that. So this is the part, and this is like the part that is equally disturbing and also fascinating and hopeful for me about humans is this all exists within all of us.
What do you mean this all exists?
Like the ability to be completely free and to be completely controlled.
Well, of course.
Right? The ability to think for oneself and to fall right into program.
Well, I mean, you and I have talked about this in different ways before. Of like, when I've said, like, I liked seeing Joe Rogan lose his shit with Candace Owens because it's very humanizing. I see, he has that. And it's like what, Peterson and Brett Weinstein were talking about on Rogan and how they made their connection is like, no, Hitler wasn't evil. Hitler's all of us. Mm-hmm. Everyone can be, we all have the same capacity for evil.
Yeah.
It's the whole like virtue signaling. Like we're all one virtuous.
We live in a multi-dimensional world, universe.
Quantum reality.
We live in a holographic something, right? And there are fractals of us in other realities that are us.
Right.
So when they do something, it affects us. And when we do something, it affects them. And so and they program the MK Ultra Ultras based on these fractal U's that they know exist, but they haven't admitted to us that they do.
Right.
You and I know that because we've done enough level of self-examination and all that kind of stuff. But like, that's what, that's how that's how this works. We're like in a kaleidoscope of realities.
Right.
And we're like the centerpiece, right? But all this stuff is happening around us and we can sort of tap into or be influenced by any of them at any time.
Right.
And at any point, like one can sort of take a certain level of control for a period of time.
Do we even know that we're the centerpiece? I mean, maybe right now we're in an ancillary reality. Like that's what I always wonder is like, where's the consciousness? Like, why is my awareness seem to think that this is my singular reality? I know that I'm existing on multiple realities, but I'm not accessing them right now. But maybe this is like some like negligible, flimsy.
So when I say that we are the
varnish
center
of
one,
reality.
it doesn't mean that the other ones can never be that. But right now,
Right.
you and I are having a conversation about this.
Well, and this is where my consciousness
Right.
seems to be housed for the moment, or
Yes.
think it's housed.
Think it's
at the
housed.
moment.
Like this is our local reality, and the other realities at this point, at least the way they seem to us, are non-local.
Right.
Right. And so, and maybe it's just that the other versions of us think the same thing.
Right.
Right.
We need to have a confab with our other dimensional
Right.
iterations.
Well, do you ever, like, when you're exercising, tap into the other fractal Danis when you're running out of energy and you're just like, I fucking can't go one more mile?
No.
So Jeff told my friend Jeff Gates, who I do some shows with, he's like, oh yeah, like tap into that, and like it works. Like I was like, yeah, I was like completely dead on my run, and I was like I'm not gonna have 2 miles left, and I just like jokingly said, all right, other fractal Emily's, let's go, and lots of energy and forward movement, and my run the rest of the way was easy. So I don't know if just the awareness of that.
I mean, I'll just pull it from like universal intelligence, but that's so interesting to personalize it and then like fractalize it.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to try it and see what that feels like.
Right? Yeah. And so,
I mean, I do that on my creative projects a lot, where I'll tap in to the dimension on which it's complete and invite that dimensional iteration of the project to help me remember how I created it.
Yeah.
Or to show me the steps I need to take to do that.
The reality where it's already done.
Yes. Like I'm opening myself to you.
Yeah.
You drive the ship.
That's interesting. I had an issue today that I was thinking about when I got here that now you've given me a solution for. Or we can talk about it. It's a private conversation. We can talk about it after their dinner. But like, that's an interesting, that's a
good one. I give that one to my clients. That's like a creative hack that's.
Yeah.
It's handy.
All right. So I think the pre-show was the show.
Pre-show.
It worked. So the pre-show was the show.
Strategy. Just call it a pre-show.
But maybe that worked this time. We'll have to do something. We're always going to have a couple plans.
Fluid.
But yeah, so the pre-show was the show. And was there anything else you want to do? That was the sort of, that wasn't a language hack, that was a life hack. So just, can you sum that up real quickly, what you just said about the nugget, about tapping into?
I mean, I think it is sort of a languaging hack because it's a reframe on reality. So the gist is, I mean, I think I already said it clearly.
Right, but just make a nugget so that people can walk away with it.
Okay, so when approaching a creative project
or even any issue or problem, maybe, right?
I guess. I mean, I use it mostly when I'm writing, right? So I'll just keep it in that context, and then it's applicable to anything. But when I'm writing a book, and I'll generally like say a prayer in invocation before I sit down, or as I sit down to write, I invoke the completed iteration of the project, and I invite it to speak to me and to show me what it wants to be. Right. And sometimes it'll be like a matter of remembering, like
remembering the future.
Yeah, like if and I had that in it's in my coloring book and it was in my calendar. So yeah, it's just inviting that iteration to drive my ship in this dimensional reality, and show me what it needs to get there.
Yeah.
I think it was more eloquent the first time.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Sorry, I mentioned it. So you can do that, and then you can borrow energy from the fractals of yourself when you're exercising too. Try that one.
You know what? I do talk about it in my book, The New P Handbook Volume 1, Little Managing Hacks for Big Change. I talk about this creation hack.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't clear the 2 times I tried to say it, you can just read my book.
It's in the book. All right.
Because everything's a commercial.
Yeah. Right. So then let's just So then commercial for Dani Katz's new book, the New P Handbook, and also you can find her at danikatz.com. Language coaching, even some astrology and some other kinds of. No, what are you doing? Not astrology. You're doing other kinds of things. Nothing.
Transformational coaching. I mean, I'm writing a book, so time's a little different conversation.
Language coaching.
Yeah.
So you can find her at danikatz.com, and you can find me at offplanetradio.com or at Facebook at Emily Moyer.
Oh, and check out her show with Robert Phoenix about Joe Rogan, because it was amazing. It was so good.
Yes, and also if you're looking for a wellness or life transformation consultation from myself, you can find that Emily Moyer on Facebook as well. And we will see you next time. Words with Dani. We are out. We're still looking for someone to help us with camera and lighting and sound. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.